So today I'll be showing a guide on how to download, install Unity along with the SDK, along with creating a weapon in Blade and Sorcery. Now it's been a while since I made a guide like this, and I feel it's best to just start with the basics. So to start off with, you're going to need to download Unity Hub. You can do this by going to unity3d.com/get-unity/download. Once you've downloaded Unity Hub, it should look like this. Now, ignore these as these won't show up for you. What you need to do is you need to go to Installs, and then you need to click Add. Now, for this Unity version, it is using 2019.4.1. Now, because it's not here, you'll need to go into the download archive. It'll come to the archive, and then you can download whichever version you need, and you can download through via Unity Hub. Once you click on that, it'll take a while, but it will download straight to Unity Hub. Then you click Next, uncheck all of these as you don't need them, and then click Done. Now, once you do that, you should have your projects. What you need to do now is you need to go to Discord. You need to go to Modding How To. Find the SDK, which I've posted here. Click on it, and it should bring you to our SDK page. From here, you click on Code, and you download zip. Now, while that's downloading, I'm going to quickly add a new one, and it's going to bring me here. Now, this is my Unity folder. Yours will look completely different. But as you can see, it's got BNS Modern Framework, which is my map SDK. The BNS Mod Framework Weapons, which is my weapons SDK. Ignore these. And then you have Zombie Maps, which is my Zombie Map SDK. Now, what you want to do is you just want to copy the location of this folder. Go into Run and locate it. Now this is the folder again. Once the SDK is downloaded, I'll show you what to do next. You can skip on for a sec if you like, it won't be that long. Now, once that's downloaded, which won't take very long, remember that the SDK updates quite often. So to update it, you'll need to just update the SDK folder inside this here. So I'll now open this up, and you should be given a BAS SDK-master. Now if you click inside, it has project settings, packages, assets, mod examples, etc. You want to copy this here. So I'll go to the folder which contains all my SDKs, and I'll drag this on there. Now you can name this whatever you like. So I'll just name this video example. Now on Unity, it will, pardon me, if you click Add, you can now add video example and select the folder, and it'll appear right here. Now, because I already have my Unity open, I'm going to ignore that for now, so I'm just going to remove it. So I have my weapon SDK open here. So now you should be given sort of a blank canvas. Now this is where your weapon making starts. So you go on to, for me, which is easy, I'll go onto Sketchfab. And I'll just search up a generic weapon, sword. downloadable, and I'll pick this here, just as an example. I already have one loaded into Unity. So you can download this weapon here, and then in Unity you can create a folder underneath assets. For instance, I have video sword here. Once I'm able to find it. Just to mention that if you've installed the SDK correctly, you'll see a game tab up here, and you'll have the SDK folder right here. Okay, so once I get a sword ready, I'll just download this one, make my life easier. So I'll download this one here. While that downloads, I go back into Unity and I create a folder under assets, and I'll just name it video sword. Now I can open this. Now to put files from a zip directly into here, you have to right click and then show in Explorer, and it'll open up this window. You then click back onto the folder, and you go into the zip that you downloaded your sword from, and now you can go into video sword, drag your FBX along with your textures. Remember that you cannot use a roughness map unless you use the Autodesk shader. I'll show you what that means in a second, but you will need a custom shader in order to use emission maps, which are used for imbuement. So I'll drag these over here. So now that it's importing all of the models and textures, I will then drag the sword onto the scene. As you can see, it's upside down. We won't worry about scaling for now. We just got to worry about, just remove that for a sec. We just need to worry about what it looks like. So just for my sake, I'm going to flip this upside down 90 degrees. Now, to apply material, there's two ways. You can either A, right click in the folder, create material. That's kind of the long way. Or you can get the texture and you can drag it onto the weapon. Now, I have not created a custom emission for this sword, so it's going to look pretty weird when you do imbuement, which is why I create my own textures for imbuement. However, what you can do is you can split the model to have only the sword work with emission. However, that is a little bit performance heavy, not by too much, but it does impact performance, as there's now two meshes and there'll be two material calls. Now that we've added a material, we click on the material and we drag the main color into base matte. We drag the metallic into the metallic. We drag the normal, which is the purple texture, into the normal map. Normally they'll say this texture is not marked as normal map. You can just click fix now and I'll fix it for you. And then you have the sword occlusion, which is the AO map, or the occlusion map. Now that we have our materials set up, it's looking pretty good. Just to let you know, the roughness map here manages how smoothness works. So if it's shiny or if it's not shiny. Here, I'll just do it halfway. Now, we need to set up as a weapon. So in your SDK folder, you should have a folder called prefabs. And then we go to items, and then we click on the example dagger. This is our example dagger here. As you can see, it's kind of marked. So let me just unmark it by clicking this button up here. And I'm going to rotate it to fit the weapon. Fit the rotation of the weapon. Alright, since the dagger is invisible or underneath this mesh, it means that this mesh is too big. So if you click on the scale tool, or you can click R, you can make it smaller to fit the size of the dagger. This looks like a good size. And then you can just delete the example dagger afterwards. Now we have our correct weapon. We want to right click on the scene, create an empty. Now we rename this whatever we want for the name of the weapon to be. I'll just name it Video Sword. Then you drag the texture onto Video Sword. After you've done this, right click the sword mesh and you unpack prefab. Now it shouldn't have any issues. First thing we want to do is click on Video Sword, add component, and we add the item definition. Now there will be errors popping up, don't worry about this right now. But as you can see, this is pretty far away from this, which means that the mesh is not in tune with the center of the map. So we want to click on the mesh, and we want to change its position to 0, 0, 0. Now it works just fine. First thing we want to do to start off is we want to click on the mesh, and we want to add the paintable script. This will make it so blood will appear on the weapon when you hit an enemy. Please note that if you're using an Autodesk shader to add roughness, we want to add material property, and we want to change the property name to main text. However, since I'm just using the universal render pipeline lit, we don't need this, so we can just change the material properties to 0. Okay, so now we want to change the holder point. The holder point is how it looks on your back or on your waist or on a rack. The blue arrow, if you click on up here to local from global, needs to point wherever is looking down. So what I mean by this is if you rotate it by pressing E or the rotate tool up here, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So the blue arrow is pointing upwards towards the tip of the blade. This means that the blade will now point down if it's on your back or on your waist or on a rack. The best place to put this holder point then is on sort of the hilt, so it looks realistic. Okay, so once we've done that, we want to change the power point. The power point is more if enemies hold it, so I normally put it at the middle of the blade. You don't really need to rotate it. If you're making a weapon for enemies, you have to worry about this. But I'm still experimenting with this myself with my own weapons. It's not 100% necessary. Now for the preview. The preview is how your weapon looks inside the book. The blue arrow needs to point towards you when you're looking at the book. So make sure that the blue arrow is pointing away from the mesh, and you need to move it to do so. And then we want to drag it up. I like to rotate it 45 degrees and increase its scale to fit. This is how it will look like in the book, but slightly rotated. Now on Video Sword, we want to add the parry definition. The parry definition allows you and allows the enemies to parry your attacks. So I will add the parry component. Once I've added the parry component, you can see it's like a line. We want to increase it to the length of the sword itself. So I will drag it on there, as you can see. Roughly the same size as the sword, and we drag it onto the blade. And yes, you can have multiple parry definitions. Remember that the parry definition and the parry point are two separate items. The parry point is how the rotation of which enemies hold your weapon when trying to parry your attacks, and parry is to make sure that the enemies can parry your attacks by knowing how far the weapon is from them. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to add colliders. So I will create an empty, I'll name it colliders. Actually no, I'll name it blades, because this is going to be the collider for the blade. The name of these is quite important, and I'll show you why in a sec. So for blades, I want to add component, and I want to add the collider group. Now, because this is the blade, it means that it needs to have the imbue mesh. Now, if you haven't set your own emission, we want to click on the material again. I'm just going to add the metallic as the emission, so we tick the emission, add the metallic. So this is what it'll look like when it's imbued. Now it has to be white, remember, because white means that it can signify if gravity is affecting it. It has like a purple hue. If fire, it has like a glowing red hue, etc. Now, this is what it's supposed to look like. If you go to emission, you want to click on HDR, and you want to change RGB to 111. If we set it to 000, it will not extract with Unity, and emission straight up won't work. Now that that is done, we go back onto blades, we create an empty, and we'll name it box 1. This is for colliders now. So I will now add a component, and I will add a box collider. Now any other colliders will do, mesh colliders, all sorts, so long as it fits the blade correctly, which makes it look realistic. Now you can either scale through R, or you can scale through the box collider itself. Along with edit collider, you can actually just edit the components to make sure that it fits well. I will do that now. So I'll just add one collider for this sword. That's a lie. I will add 2 colliders for this sword. Because I've heard there are problems with emission and 1 collider. So I will add 2 just to fit it nicely. Now you can select both boxes and edit them separately. There we go. And now because this is the blade, I want to select both of the box colliders, and I want to change its material to blade. If this was a blunt weapon, you still change the material to blade, as the material sounds are determined by the damages of the weapon. I will explain this further in detail later on. So now that you have the colliders for the blades, we have the colliders for the handle. So for the handle, you can name this whatever you like. Underneath video sword, I'll just name it blunt collider. And then we add a collider group to this one too. And under blunt colliders, I will create an empty. I'll just do boxes again, but this time, so I'll add a box collider. I'm going to do this quite lazily, but you guys can do it in more detail if you wish. To see scales better, you can click on this little square here, and it'll give you a much easier board view. You can click on the Z-axis and Y-axis up here to switch views also. Now, because this is for the guard and it's not actually hurting anyone, except for the blunt wise, you can change this to metal. Now under blunt colliders, I will add a capsule collider. Now the capsule collider will be edited for the handle. So you can do just the same with the box collider. You can change its size here. Easy as that. And then for below here, I will add a sphere. Even though it's not a sphere, it's easy to give an example of using one. And of course, as I said before, you can edit the sizes. It won't be perfect on each side, but I'll use it as an example for now. Now, don't forget here, the capsule, which is the handle, will have a leather, which I use wood for. And then the sphere, which is metal, will have the metal collider. Now, please hint, during the physics colliders, chainmail, flesh, leather, yeah, those will create blood when you impact it. So if you want to use something that's like leather, instead use fabric. Okay. So now that I have my weapon collider set out, I want to go back to my blades. And as you can see, there is imbue effect renderer, imbue emission renderer, and imbue shoot. Now for this weapon, we'll be only using the imbue emission renderer. So I will click on, or I won't click on it, but I'll select the mesh and I'll just drag it over to imbue emission renderer. This means that the blade will be imbued when you heat it up. Okay, so that's the colliders done. Now I want to right click on video sword again and I want to create a handle definition. Remember that the names of these are quite important. And I want to create a handle script here. It will look like a sphere. So I will go out of this view just to show you easier. I will adjust the size. The way you do this is by increasing the axis length. And then you can enable point-to-point transform. This will look messed up and may not work properly if the item definition scale is not 111. Anyway, for the handle, we want to make sure that it's decent. And then we want to add allowed orientations. This may say it's obsolete, but I do this because it helps anyway. You click for allowed orientations and it brings you these elements here. Now, for element 0, I'll keep normal. I want to create these both here. Then for element 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3, I want to create the allowed hand to both, but keep its default to none. Now for element 1, its rotation on the z-axis will be 180. For element 2, the y-axis will be 180, and then for element 3, both the y and the z-axis will be 180. Now we click on calculate reach, which calculates the reach of the weapon. The gizmo is broken at the moment, but that'll fix in due course. And then we want to click update to new orientations. Now, as you can see, this is holding the wrong way. So what we want to do is we just want to rotate the handle. If I can find the here, by 90 degrees. You can say up here, either minus 90 or 90 works, as that means that it will be held this way. Now that the handle is done, we need to do damager definitions. So click on this, right click on the video sword again and add 3 damages for this sword. It's slash, pierce, and blunt. The names of these are important. I recommend you keep these the same. For blunt weapons, you will need to add 2 damager definitions, one called blunt and another one called blunt handle. These are then again explained when I get to the JSON part of this tutorial. Now, for slash, pierce, and blunt, I'm going to select them all and I'm going to add a damager definition. As you can see, collider group is mentioned here, which is important. So I'll start with the slash definition. The slash is allowing you to, well, slash the enemy, allowing dismemberments and such. So here I will click direction all, and I will add the length and depth to be 1 for now, to make sure it fits the blade accurately. And it looks like 1 fits the blade here, but of course there will be depth if you set it forward. So change the depth to 0.00, something small like 0.03. We then drag the blade's collider, because the slash is only affecting the blade, to the collider group. Now I will say direction for slicing damages should be set to forward or forward and backward. However, I never do this with swords, as it can cause a few problems for me, especially when it comes to not dealing correct damage to NPCs. However, if you create an axe, it is recommended you use forward for the slash, as it allows you to do the slashes correctly. for axes also. Let me just show you an example axe I have here from boss battles. This is my axe from boss battles. As you can see, this line is the slash here. It means that the slash goes on the end of the blade and fits the blade. I've also done it here also. And then you set the depth to be how far they go into the blade. Okay, so with this sword, you have these. So I've done the slash now, the slash is done. So we now go to pierce, which is the allowing you to stab enemies. I will only set the depth here to 1. Is 1 enough? Oh, and you also need to set this one to forward, otherwise there will be issues. Now, right now it's pointing the wrong way, so you want to rotate it. However you rotate the weapon, and it looks like 1 is good enough here. Now, it does not matter how far above it is the blade, so long as it isn't too much. I will decrease it to make it so it fits the blade accurately, and then decrease the depth by a little bit here. So now it will reach down here before stopping. And for blunt, make sure it's set to all. Oh, before I do that, for PS, drag the collider groups for blade over to the collider group. Now for blunt, we can leave that at the handle. We don't need to touch the length or depth. We just drag the blunt collider's collider group over to the collider group. Then finally, one more script. We right click the video sword, we create empty, and I'm going to name it whoosh. Now the whoosh point allows it to make sound. So what I'll do here is I'll drag it up to the top of the blade and I'll add the whoosh component, or the whoosh point. So now we will make a whoosh sound at this location here. Then we edit the item definition. We add an item ID, and everything else will update. Now we can't add a fly direction reference, which makes it so it flies in a direction when you throw it. For which I will add an empty, I will name flyref. And then what I'll do is blue arrow points forward. So I'll make it so it does. I'll put it, I rotated that wrong. I'm going to put it to sort of the mid part of the blade. We'll go onto a video sword and we'll drag the flyref on there. Now the custom center of mass here allows you to adjust the obvious center of mass of the sword. I won't be doing this as it's for a sword, and this is kind of a good location. However, you can edit it, but it can create issues if you've done it incorrectly. The custom interior tensor is mainly used for arrows, of which it will allow arrows and spears, which will allow the flyref to kind of work correctly when you throw it. And then for custom references is for if you ever need a component which is scripted, you'll add one, and then you'll drag, for instance, a transform and its transform. So like blue arrow points forward, and then we'll name it whatever and then reference it in the script. However, I don't script, so I don't really reference those. Our sword is now done. So what we want to do is we want to go back down to our folder for video sword. And we want to drag the video sword down here. Now once you have the prefab, there will be errors, but do not worry about these. These are fake. They're fake. So now you have a prefab. It will act a bit weird when you click on it. That's a current bug going on. So what I like to do is I like to set its asset bundle, and then you have to click off it a few times, which is quite frustrating. So just to make my life easier, I'll right click it and I'll just delete it. And I'll drag the video sword down, and then I will assign its asset bundle. So you go to asset bundle, you click new. That didn't really work there. So I'll do that again. Drag it down, click asset bundle. there's all my asset bundles. You click new. I'm just going to name this video sword. Now that I've named this asset bundle, I go to game, asset bundle builder. Now it may ask for your directory. You just put the directory of the streaming assets folder in here. Now you find your asset bundle, for which it's video sword. Because you have the directory, you will go to streaming assets now. So I'll go to my streaming assets folder. And I'll create a new folder called video sword. Now, an important thing about video sword is you will need a file called a manifest JSON. You can take this from any mod so long as you edit it. So I will go into my own Fort Toth mod. I will copy its manifest. I will then go into video sword. I will paste it. You can edit this with Notepad if you like, but I like to edit it with Notepad++. Now, because it's Fort Toth, which is not correct, I will change this to just video sword example for now. Description, whatever. It's mod version 1, and make sure the game version fits the game version exactly. Otherwise, Vortex users will have issues and warnings saying that their mod version is not correct. So make sure that it's 8.3, or when 8.4 comes out, this will change to 8.4, and so on and so forth. So you can save that now. Now that you have your manifest file, this is now counted as a mod. You want to go back into streaming assets, go to default, and you should have a bunch of files. You want to go into the items file, find out what type of sword this is. So I'm going to say this is a normal common sword. So I'll copy the sword long revered, which is or common, sorry, which kind of fits the weapon. I'll go back to streaming assets and I'll paste it in here. I will then rename it to video sword, and this is our weapon. Now before I extract, I want to right click and edit the file, and you'll have a lot of things to edit. So I will change the ID. The ID is important to change, so I'll change it to video sword. Now the prefab name depicts the asset bundle first, so it will be @ and then video sword, and then this part here will be the name, so it will be of your prefab, so it'll be video sword again. I know it's a bit confusing, so I'll name it it is sensitive to, it is case sensitive, so I will name it video sword, and then don't forget the .prefab at the end. Now the slot here is important. Small makes it so it can only go on your waist like a dagger. Medium means that it's like a normal sword. You can either go on your waist or on your back. And then large is for only on your back. Now this will stick to medium. Then mass, we want to change the weight of the weapon. I feel the weight and the drag kind of fits the weapon, so we'll leave these the same for now. You don't need to touch any of these. I want to change flight from 30 to true if I want it to fly when I use telekinesis, or when I throw the weapon, sorry. Ignore these here. And then we go down to the collide groups. Now, the transform name of the collide groups has to be the name of your blade collider group, which has your blade colliders. And then the collide group ID, T1 is like a dagger, so it uses probably 2 hits before imbuement runs out. Oh yeah, collide groups is for imbuement, by the way. T2 is like a sword, so it takes about 4. And then T3 and T4, of course, extending even more. You can also use the crystal ones. You can find the collider group IDs in streaming assets if you go to the default folder. And then you go to collider groups. Here they are. So you have like shields, props, crystals, which allow you to hit the ground and you'll create a shockwave with gravity and such. But anyway, going back to video sword. The damages, the transform names are, for instance, the pierce, the slash, and the blunt. It has to be in order of pierce, slash, and blunt, otherwise there will be issues caused. The damager IDs depict what the damages are used. So, for instance, the damages you can find in here. There's like axe slashes, dagger pierces, sword pierce. You can make your own. Just make sure that it fits the weapon. Because if I use, for example, I don't know, axe slash for slash here, and it's a sword, it will make a different sound compared to if I used a sword slash. Okay. And then we have slash and blunt here. Interactables, the handpost ID you can change, but I recommend you just keep it to override handpost false. The transform name is obviously the name of the handle itself. Now the localization ID, you kind of have to change. I don't know what it really does. Display name then displays what is called in game, so I'll name it video sword. Description is kind of what the description of the weapon is when you click on it, so I'll just name it as an example. There we go. The author then is you, and then the category path depicts what categories it goes in. You can create your own categories. There's a guide on modding how to. However, it's recommended just to put it in the basics ones, so like swords, daggers, specials, etc. Okay, now that that's done, we save it. We go back into Unity. I'm just going to untick things so it doesn't take ages. Now we have video sword here. I'm going to click on target sword, and I'm just going to go target location. I'm going to click on my video sword, so that'll make sure that it's going to the right folder, and then I'll click build asset bundle. Now this can take a while. However, once it is done, in this folder here, you should have a file called videosword.asset. I think. Yeah, .assets. So it will be videosword.assets once it is complete. And if you have done all the steps I have gathered here now, you have done the mod correctly. Your weapon will now work in game. And if you have any errors or problems, feel free to ask in the Discord for mod help. Now, once that is done, we just gotta wait for it. It will take a while. I'm not going to show you in game because it will take a very long time for it to load up, and I don't really edit videos. So I'll just leave that as it is. Hopefully this tutorial on how to install Unity along with how to make your own weapon should help. And I'll see you guys later. Cheers.